Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Almost Anything Goes podcast, where we like to discuss some of the most controversial and compelling topics that come to mind. I'm Orvin, God's favorite for some of you who already know, and I'll be your host for today. Oh, isn't that so exciting? Joining me are some special co hosts, some amazing women in my life and in yours by this point. Let me introduce them to you now. First, we have Miranda, our resident Sparkle Joy coach.
Hello, everybody.
Next, we have the also fashionable Shenanigans Inc.
Hi.
And last, but certainly not least, the beautiful, we have the rebellious advocate, Marsé.
Hey, y'all.
Today, we have an oh so special episode for you all today. First, because I'm running these special, but we have a special episode today, and I'm excited. And I'm also a little nervous about today's episode, which is a deeply important one. And the title of it is The Struggle is Real: How to Deal with the Church Hurt. Oh my goodness. There are a lot of people out there that deal with church hurt over and over again. Some get over it, some don't. Church hurt can be and sometimes is a very painful reality for many. It can shake your faith. It can challenge your relationship with the church community. And by listening and tuning in, maybe you'll get some relief. Maybe you'll get some healing, or maybe you'll just understand that you are not alone out there. We all experience it from time to time. We're here to talk about our experiences and provide some insights and hopefully help those of you who are going through this find some peace and some resolution. Let's jump on in. And first of all, I'm going to have to give some disclaimers. Some people may get offended. We learn in the church, you shouldn't take on an offense. So it's up to you right now. If you're offended by it, maybe you're the cause of it. Maybe you're the one that experienced it, but don't take on the offense by some of the things we say today. We are individuals in different line of work and different fields, and we have certain credentials and we have certain certifications in certain things, but by no way, shape, or form are we claiming to be therapists at this moment. We are here to give you some help. But remember, if you need therapy for the things that you experience, make sure you go and get an officially licensed therapist to help you with what you're going through. Not just Christian counselors, not just church counselors, but officially licensed therapists also. With that said, that's just a little disclaimer I want to put out there. All right. Let's start out with the understanding of what church hurt is. Marsé, can you share a little insight about this?
Absolutely. So, church hurt refers to the emotional or physiological pain caused by experiences within a church community. This can be due to a variety of reasons, such as feeling judged, betrayed, unsupported by the church leaders or fellow members. It can also be incredibly isolating and disheartening. And to add on, it might not just be happening in church, it could be happening in mass and so many other things, synagogues. It's not just related to the Christian church.
Absolutely. I'm glad you stated that because that's something I forgot to mention in the beginning. It's not only just a church building. People worship in different places and they've not only experienced emotional and physiological pain, but sometimes all types of hurt, spiritual hurt, emotional hurt, mental hurt, like they're just going through it when people do certain things to you. It's just hard to get over sometimes, but absolutely. Thank you, Marsay. And Stacy, let me ask you, what are some of the common causes of church hurt?
So I would say some of the common causes, church hurt can stem from many sources. Some common causes include conflicts with the church leadership, hypocrisy or moral failure among members. It's an exclusion or cliquish type behavior that you may experience and unmet expectations. So it's important to acknowledge, I will say it's important to acknowledge that the hurt is real and it is valid. So don't think that this is just something you're feeling and internalize it. It is a valid situation.
Yes, absolutely. What we go through, hurt is painful. Look, people say things to us that make us feel like we're less than. You're not less than. People say things to us and do things to us to make us feel like we don't belong. And you do belong. You do belong to God. I want to say that first and foremost. Whatever whoever, look, what you're worshiping. I like the sign that says coexist. And if you all seen that card, the thing on the back of the card that says coexist, and it has all the symbols or most of them included of different religions, we are all in this together, whether I believe that I'm a Christian or the next person they're a Buddhist and the next person is a Muslim. We're all on this earth together. We need to learn how to behave like we're here together and learn how to coexist and actually love one another. But yes, hurt is real and hurt is valid. And I'm thank you for sharing that with us, Miranda. Miranda, can you share a personal experience or a story about church hurt?
I unfortunately can, but before I do before
Well,
I do that,
unfortunately.
I would love to I know it is unfortunate.
It
Uh,
is.
I would love to be able to even listening to Stacy when she's describing the different types of church hurt. It's so interesting because before we started this podcast, y'all, I was on talking to Orvin, God's favorite, and then this was me. I was like, "Oh, let me find my ruby red lipstick to put on, cause I'm just saying." Even ruby red lipstick is a problem from some churches, and you walk up and with that ruby red lipstick, them red tips. Come on now, somebody. We really have to be very mindful, even at the what are they telling you? And is it doctrine or is it what they think? And is it, we have to just be so self aware about a lot of things. And I think when we're talking about churches, I think we just get so indoctrinated that we forget it's okay to think. It's okay. It's okay to think. It's okay to ask questions. And if you're being shut down, that needs to be a ding, 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 ding. Okay, now you didn't ask me any of that. Let me go to
Yeah,
your question.
no, people, it is real.
It's real. So
Mhm.
church hurt. I unfortunately have a couple of stories, but I'm only going to share one. And that was the very beginning of a church hurt. And so for me, I was in my 20s. I was a part of this church, loved this church, started to be on a ministry with this church. And so on this ministry, I thought what I had was, again, note, I was in my 20s, y'all. So still young. I thought I was with this wonderful, monumentous, great female leader in the church because she was over this ministry. She was an actual minister. But what turned out to be something that I thought was wonderful turned into something extremely tormented. It was, to make a long story short, I believe, and this is hindsight after the fact, she had a whole lot of mental challenges. And when we're talking about me in my 20s, that was what, 30 something? I'm sorry, 30 something years ago. I know I look like I'm in my 20s now, but it was like 30 something years ago. And we didn't talk about mental illness then. And being young in the church and having a minister tell you, oh, you are being possessed, or you're acting like you're this and you're that and you're better than, and you want all the attention. You sitting there, I'm trying to do is just do what you telling me to do. What do you mean I want attention? I am never the person that has to be in front of the crowd. I'm the person that is perfectly fine behind cheering you on. So if you're in front because you're being asked to be in front, and then you have someone of authority and power telling you, I would go home saying, Lord, am I being this way? And I'm like, no, that is not my intent, to the point that I was so shooken up because this is a person of authority. And in my mind, I'm thinking the head pastors must know because y'all put them in authority. Why would you allow someone to taint young, impressionable? I'm saying young, impressionable, but there was a whole lot of people there and a whole lot of different ages. But in my mind, why would you have someone that's over a ministry? So I thought head leadership must have known that this woman was a little bit cray cray. And it was so confusing to me, but so detrimental that I left the church.
That must have been hard, especially in your 20s, because that's your, impressionable, and you're still trying to find out who you are and your place in whatever organization or even in the world.
It was detrimental. My thought process back then, you're in leadership,
Mhm.
and then someone above you put this person in leadership. How dare you not know that they were experiencing or exhibiting mental illness to this level and to this degree? So what type of protocols, so I just couldn't understand it because that's not what I thought leadership was about.
That's such a or not beautiful, but that's such a true example of how people are good at hiding things too. Because those other people in leadership above that person probably had no clue whatsoever.
Mhm.
And you
Thank
could
you.
very well be right.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that, Miranda. And sometimes in addition to that, sometimes they do know Marsé, like they know and they just excuse the behavior because this person has good qualities in certain areas to help propel the ministry, as they might say, or they are friends with the head leadership, or we've known this person. This can't be true that they're doing this intentionally and you're soft, and they make you, like I said earlier, they try to make people feel less than. You're supposed to have tougher skin. And I'm not saying this is in every church community, but it does happen, and it does happen. And especially in some of our Black churches, we're raised a certain way and we're taught that you have to accept things and you need to just go with the punches of life. And it's not right. But I really thank you for that story, because there are some others out there that are listening to this podcast or watching it that are experiencing some of those types of things within their ministries, within their churches right now, within their synagogues. They're serving somewhere, and there's somebody over top of them in leadership that you would expect to operate differently, operate better, operate with the love of God, and treat people better, and think about be others minded and others first. And it doesn't always happen that way. And hopefully later on in this podcast, you'll understand that this didn't cause her to run completely away from God. But look, when you run up against circumstances, there are circumstances when David ran. For those who listen to the Bible, David ran when Saul was trying to kill him. Jesus left when the crowds was trying to come. You need to know when to fight, and you need to know when to run. There are different circumstances for different situations, but you need to learn when to apply them to your life. But I don't want to get into that too much yet. Marsé, and say thank you again, Miranda. But Stacey and Marsé, I wanted to ask you if you have any stories or you have any situations that you might have experienced personally, or you might have a close friend. I don't want to just assume that it's just all on us individually, because yes, we do have different stories from different walks of life, different situations. But Stacey or Marsé, it could be, even though we're talking about church, I don't want to get too far off of this topic, but it could be an organization, because churches are organizations that has caused somebody a hurt or harm mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, that caused them to leave. So did you have anything you want to share? Any story that a friend might have told you or anything?
I definitely do. I have many. My specific story is actually from a couple of years ago, and it wasn't a church, but I'm a practicing Christian. Grew up in Christian school, grew up going to church every Sunday, had a mom who made sure I did my own research, made sure I was finding things out for myself and not just believing what I'm being told. So at this school, I graduated. This was high school. I graduated. I finished college. 2020 came, and there was a lot of topics regarding Christianity, Black Lives Matter, religion, all of these things came open, and also about abortion. If you are pro life or pro choice, again, I'm a practicing Christian. I am pro choice. And I had people from the adults, leaders, like teachers I had from the school that I went to in high school come to me and tell me I'm not a Christian because I am pro choice. That's just a little bit of what I have experienced through the church, especially with being a person of color, being in the LGBTQ plus community, all of these other identities that I have, to know that I have been following Jesus all of my life and being told specifically by a white man that I am not a Christian was absolutely heartbreaking to me. Thankfully, I've been deconstructing my faith and I have been unlearning certain things that I've learned or that I did learn through that school, through those churches and things like that, that I now don't agree with. But it was just horrifying to me to know that person is still at that school. I don't know if they're still at the school now, but when it happened, they were still at that school. They were still in leadership. And it's a school that is majority Black children that are going to that school and things like that, where I'm just like, this doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make sense. And that's just, again, a little bit of my experience. And it wasn't even a church I was going to. So I have many stories about like churches that I'm current or that I was going to and things like that. But that's just a little bit of it. And it's still horrifying for me to think about and to really process. That is something that I was told from someone who is a Christian. I'm assuming they are a practicing Christian, and yet that came out of their mouth.
It is so interesting that it maybe this is something God's favorite you can talk to, but it baffles me when we take away rights from people. It baffles me when we don't allow people to make choices. And I identify as a Christian as well. And to me, one of the things that I love about God is he doesn't force us, he gives us a choice. And so when we, especially Christians, take people's rights away, their fundamental right to choose, whether we think it's right or wrong, but you take their fundamental right away by condemning them, I don't understand it. I just don't.
You are very, very correct.
When organizations, people try to take certain rights away or choices away, I just think it's another exercise of, I want you to think the way I do. And if you don't think the way I do, you're out of here. That type of, situation. They're not willing to step out of their own comfort zone. And I find that when most people, whatever religion it is, when they make different assertions about whatever religion that they're talking about at the time, those individuals actually know nothing about it. And I tend to challenge them and ask them, oh, so have you you've been to a synagogue? And then that question is like paralyzing because they're like, no, because here's what I know from a friend, from a this, nothing, absolutely nothing. So it's just mind boggling how people can get out there and they talk about things as if they know. And then when you challenge them, it's like, you, you don't know. You don't know. You've never sat at a Baptist church. So you don't know what the service is like. You don't know what they believe in. You don't know the details of why they do what they do. But you have all this commentary of how this is unacceptable. This is acceptable. So I am not Catholic. I would never go sit down and talk about the Catholic Church and why do you believe in the Pope? Why is this going on in your church? I wouldn't make that assertion. So I think that if people just sit back, try to understand and ask questions, you will really realize that we might all be going for the exact same thing. We're just taking different paths to it.
I
But
agree with
nobody does.
that. I agree with that. Clap, clap, clap. I so agree with that. Look, it was so much said in that whole little segment. I'm trying to point my finger back at who I want to say something to first. Those stories were deep. All of you all, I know, right?
I just wanted to add on to what Stacey said. I just Googled it because I wanted to know. Is the question of, did Jesus ask questions? Yes. He
Yes, he
asked
did.
so many questions. He was curious. He is curious. So that's all I wanted to say. I just had to do a quick Google search for that.
Yes, he asked questions.
And this is why I said it's a real controversial topic in the beginning, because even with Marsé, I'm going to go with Marsé first, when she said about somebody over top of her. And not that she did this, but people that are listening, we have to be careful with who we invest in so much, even though because these people are leaders, they're still fallible. And this is why you need to do what Stacey said and ask questions and see how it all ties in. Go get your own information for yourself and learn, remain teachable, continuously learn about these things, because people teach things and say things from a space from which they know. They don't always go get the education. They don't always go get the facts. They don't always go get the truth. So it's up to you to be mindful of what I'm going to take and what I'm going to leave and what I'm going to believe. And I always make this statement and say, you are going to receive what you believe. So if you believe in something negative, you believe in something bad, you're going to receive what you believe. And even from Marsé to Stacey, for Stacey saying, go get the information, I'm going to go back to Miranda, which Miranda said, the choice is yours. God has given us the choice. And we forget to love. Religion like knocks out when we go to be religious and not spiritual and seeking God on things. We become judgmental. We become self-centered. We think we've learned everything and we're not open to learning new things. And you have to make the choice and make the decision to do what is not only right to you, but what is right by God, right by whatever you're worshiping, and make these decisions to not put yourself in so many positions to just stay in this hurt, in this harm, and these type of situations.
You mentioned love. And I remember when I worked a lot of Christian summer camps. And I remember one person came up to lead the lesson, the sermon. And it has stuck with me to this day, like over 5 years later. Love isn't love without a choice. And that has really stuck with me since then I'll marinate in that. But that is something that has always stayed with me. And that's a big reason to why, I am the rebellious advocate and I am pushing against so many things because of that statement in itself.
And Orvin, you said it very nicely because I did not know how to position this, because I think it's accountability on both sides. The leader, definitely. You're going to get up there and lead an organization, a church, a religion, what have you. You do have some responsibility to how you conduct yourself, how you treat people. There's also accountability on the members of the church, meaning everything that sparkles is not gold. These people are fallible. They make mistakes. And don't forget that you're not worshiping them. You're worshiping the religion, the higher power. And I think some people get lost in worshiping, oh my God, look at this great speech, great suit, driving a nice car. Let me tell this individual all my problems and he or she will solve them. That's not what they're there to do. So there's accountability on both sides, the leader too. And the leader shouldn't take on that role and be this all powerful thing. That is not your role. And I think that individuals and leaders and members of the church should remember that. It's a balance.
And I'd like to add on to even what Stacy is saying because she's speaking of accountability within leadership, within just the church itself or the members. However, there are so many churches out here with really no governing bodies, period. How about that? And so there aren't any governing bodies, and they are able to do what they choose to do. This is what I deem leadership to be. This is what I deem it to be. This is what I deem. And I'm like, what the hay bucket?
Good point. That's a good point. There are some that don't have a governing body, but they're doing it the correct way. So I don't want people to
Yes,
get
that is true. That is true.
there
That is true.
aren't good leaders and good churches out there, organizations. We're not saying that. It's just that the hurt really stems and comes from those that are misguided and not applying the rules correctly.
Exactly. Miranda chimed in, and I was going to say because, and all of that is true, but and also with what Miranda was saying about her story, there are some instances where you need to just get from under the incorrect leadership. So I just want to say that to let people know, even though it may be sometimes it's us, sometimes we don't like to get our skin rubbed the wrong way. And but you have to think, even with, and I think Stacy might, this is the association that came to mind with me. I think I was even in the shower. I was like, oh, the salt scrub, the facial cleansers, they have these little crystals in them. And sometimes it don't always feel good when you get rubbed the wrong way, but it's for a good purpose. And it does a good cleansing and a good healing, and it makes things become what they supposed to be. So sometimes getting rubbed the wrong way is a good thing for certain people, but I don't want you to take it and just accept it because some people are out there to intentionally hurt you and to do harm to you. But sometimes we got to understand you're going to get rubbed the wrong way with certain situations. So don't always run just because, oh my gosh, she said something to me about me drinking my coffee. He got up there and said something about my red lipstick and my skirt was too high because it was 1 inch above the knee. Don't go running because somebody just said something minute, just the minuscule things, because those things are offensive. I don't want you to say nothing about my beard. You better not say nothing about my gray hair because it might be an issue. But that doesn't mean that I should just leave where I am worshiping, where I'm serving, whatever, just because those little things have said to you. So be mindful of that in your hurt. Be mindful that you don't have to always run in situations. Is there anything anybody else would like to add before we move on?
Yeah, I want to say be mindful there's a difference between discipline and abuse. And so I think we're not speaking about discipline per se, Orvin, you're talking about. Yes, we know they are going to say some things that will prick your spirit, if you will. And that is for a betterment, for a change. But you should also be able to find whatever they're talking about in whatever holy book you all follow. So also know that. Don't just follow someone blindly. If you have a holy book, you should be reading for yourself. However, there is a difference between abuse and really what we're talking about is abuse. And you need to know the difference. I have had conversations with people where I didn't necessarily equate it, but if I'm looking back, the situation that I was in was abusive, which is probably why when people were talking to me about their particular situation, I have had this conversation where I have said, baby, it sounds like you in an abusive relationship, period. Baby,
And,
hey.
and look, I know she didn't expect me to say this, but I'm free to say I'm one of those people that she talked to because I know everybody in this circle right here that we're having this discussion amongst. And she had told me, and it's not a laughing matter because
But it's
medically
true.
think because I'm a strong-minded male that you just, oh, you can rig it through. Oh, I'm tough, tough, tough. But she's heard me say certain things and she was like, oh man, that sounds like you were being abused. You were in an abusive relationship and you didn't even realize it. But yes, don't, for men out there that are listening, for women out there are listening, whoever's listening, You never look, don't take it lightly because you could be in a very, very abusive situation and you're not even realizing it because you served in this place for 20 something years or however many years and you've accepted stuff as chastening or discipline or love. And really you're in an abusive situation and you don't know it. She's so right. We're talking
Point.
about
Oh,
her today. Yes, you can.
can
You
we
can
say one
raise your
more?
church.
I gotta say this because what our audience is seeing right now is a whole lot of African American faces on this screen. And so, of course, we're able to speak to that more. But something that I want to make sure that we all acknowledge and recognize that, especially as African Americans, and depending on how old you are, maybe not necessarily for Marsé, but for the rest of us, we grew up, you keep your dirty secrets to yourself. And we grew up that way, just in general. You don't tell what's going on in your house. You do not tell your neighbor. You don't tell your teacher. And I really believe we take that or have taken that into, especially if we're talking about African American, whatever, because that's the premise that a lot of us grew up on. We take it to the church, and you all, I can count on one hand probably how often I've shared my church hurt. And I haven't shared all of it with others. And even with that being said, people are sitting on toxic situations. And I don't even know if they always even recognize that's what it is because they're doing what you're saying, God's favorite. Instead of, they're thinking, okay, it's me. It's me. It's me. I'm not tough enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not this. And not recognizing they're trying to swallow something that they're just to swallow.
We're going to help you out there, those to our listeners, because we got a lot going on. We could talk about this topic forever. What we would like to do at this point is we would want to begin to start giving you some practical steps and some things. If some more come up during the topic, that's great. But Marsé, I would like to ask you this. What are some steps that can be help to begin healing from church hurt?
Before I talk about the real steps, I want to say as the rebellious advocate, I'm someone who is just like air all the dirty laundry. Just scream it from the rooftops, from the hills, let everybody know. Seriously. But definitely acknowledge your pain. Know that it is valid. You absolutely have permission to grieve. I have cried much over the things that have happened to me at churches, and it's okay to feel hurt. And then in that, you are able to seek support from friends, family, counselors. This is something for me, again, as a practicing Christian. I had mentors, other women in the church that I really trusted and I believed in, and they listened to me and they understood and they were willing to sit and understand to listen to where I was coming from. And they even shared some things with me, like about their past and things like that. And so I was able to grow a relationship with them. And I went to them. I seek support from them. When I left my last church, I had many conversations with my mentor that was in that church to talk to her about it because I was just like, this is a lot. But she was the person, that trusted friend that I had in that moment. And also, communicate your feelings with church leaders if possible. If possible. Sometimes it's not possible. Sometimes it's better to just get out. But if you do have the opportunity, or even if the pastor is willing to listen, and I pray and I hope that pastor is willing to listen, because if they're not, that's definitely a red flag. So please communicate your feelings with leadership, church leadership. And then also remember that your relationship with Jesus, God, whomever you serve, is separate from your experiences with that religious organization. That's something that, again, has kept me, honestly, all the church that I've had brought me closer to Jesus because I was able to seek out the truth and realizing that Jesus is all that he is. He's amazing. He's great. I could have my life. I wouldn't be here if I didn't follow him. And I had to remember that is separate than the churches I grew up in, the Christian schools I grew up in, even like the things that I've learned from my family. It's very separate.
Thank you for that. Those are very great points. Stay tuned for part two. We'll be back with more great conversation and more awesome discussion.